Hey guys, what is up? Big Red Reviews here, back again with another video. And today on this channel, I wanted to talk about cruising. And I'm a reviewer, obviously Big Red Reviews, and I like to talk about movies, games, and all that. But as you know, I have made two videos on Icon of the Seas and Star of the Seas. And anyone who knows me, I'm a big cruiser. I love cruising. I think it's like one of my favorite things to do. My mom's been a travel agent for 30 years, so I always grew up with that. I'm a travel agent with her now, and I've always been kind of knowledgeable on cruises. I always help my friends figure out which ones, and if you guys need bookings, I'll have all that info probably here in my bio. We do not charge fees, so if you go through us, we're not going to charge a fee to work on it. You're only going to pay what we find with the cruise line, what deals we can find. One thing people always ask me about is different classes of ships. And if you guys don't know, every cruise line has a class, and in those classes you'll have a set ships that kind of basically look the same, and there'll be different things throughout those set of ships, like different restaurants, maybe a different theme on board. For example, Icon and Star, they have a different color theme. Like Star has like green and yellow, and Icon was more like blue and yellow, I think. And I just wanted to go over the class of ships in Royal. Now, I haven't been on every single class, and there's reasons for that, but we'll get into that. Let's start off with the bottom two, because I kind of clumped these together a little bit, which is the Vision class, which is Vision, Grandeur, Enchantment, and Rapsody of the Seas. And then you have Radiance class, which is Radiance, Brilliance, Jewel, and Serenade of the Seas. These are obviously the oldest ships in the fleet, but the one big pro, there's a couple pros. One of the big pros of these two classes is they can get into ports that the newer classes can't. The problem with like Icon class and Oasis class is these ships are so damn big now that some of the ports you really can't get into because the ports just can't support these ships. If you want to see ports that aren't on every itinerary with like Icon and Oasis class, which is their two most popular, then you'll go these two classes. Another pro is that these are smaller ships. They hold about, I think, like 3,000 people, 3,000 people, I think. Don't quote me on that, but somewhere around there. For example, Icon is like 8,000 people. And that's not including workers, I don't think. So there's a lot of people on there, but the ship's bigger, which we'll get into. These ships are more for smaller, laid back. You're not going to have as many activities as the newer ships, but if you're looking for a more laid back experience and not as big and stuff, and you want to see new ports that you really don't get with the older or with the newer ships, then I'd say go these classes. But me, I kind of grew up starting with Freedom class, and obviously their most popular class, which is Oasis, and now Icon. I've been kind of spoiled since my mom's a travel agent. I've always kind of gotten to go on these ships, so I've always liked those three classes the most. But I've never been on these two, and I've had friends that have gone on them and family, and they've said it's great. I'm sure. I love Royal. I'm not sponsored by Royal. Mr. and Mrs. Royal, if you hear this, I'd love to be sponsored by you guys. I love your cruise line. But yeah, let's get into it. Next is Voyager class, which is Voyager, Navigator, Adventurer, Explorer, and Mariner. I've been on Mariner. I was 5, but I do remember it. And Mariner is kind of similar to the Freedom class. And these two classes right here. So I'll talk about Freedom in a second, but this look of this ship was iconic in the early 2000s. I remember seeing this look. I remember there was a period after, again, I'm not trying to get dark, but when my dad died, we stopped cruising because my dad was the type where we'd go on cruises and then literally the last night he would be booking the next one. And that's how I'm trying to get. But I remember when I was in that phase of not cruising, I would see these boats and they were just so iconic. And I remember like just everyone like always gawking over them and stuff, and I always wanted to go on them. And we did do Mariner, and I really liked it. I mean, this is where you have, the iconic, observation deck that goes above the Lido deck that's under the funnel, and I'm pretty sure there's a nightclub on there. At least on Independence there was. And it's just a really nice vibe. And they have the TV on the Lido deck, which some of the newer ships don't do. I love the TV on the Lido deck, especially like if you go in May when the NBA finals are going on, everyone's in jerseys and everyone's arguing and they're watching it on the Lido deck with like a drink in your hand in the hot tub. It is the best. I remember watching like a playoff NFL game on board one time, and it was the best. So that's why I like these classes too, because they have that TV. And Freedom is not much different. Freedom class, you have Freedom, Liberty, and Independence of the Seas. I've been on Freedom and Independence, and I'm going on Liberty in August. And what's interesting is I've actually been on, this won't have any merit because Liberty is the only one not to get refreshed, and it's getting refreshed in April because it's actually moving to Southampton. But if you don't know, when they like refurbish or like refresh, I forgot the word they use, a boat, they'll send it to dry dock for about a month or two, and they'll basically add some newer restaurants that have been famous on their newer ships, and like kind of clean up, maybe add some slides and stuff. And what's interesting is I went on Freedom before it got refurbished, and then I went on Independence after it got refurbished. So it was like the same boat, and it was like a night and day difference. Like they had more stuff to do, and it was great. I think this is a great starting class. If I had to choose, I'd say Oasis, because I love Oasis class. And you could find some nice Wonder of the Seas and Oasis class ships, you know, there. But this is not bad. Now, I know Freedom goes out of Miami. Again, this usually changes every year, but as of 2026, Freedom goes out of Miami. I'm pretty sure Independence goes out of Jersey now, and Liberty actually this month is going into dry dock and then going to Southampton. And I will be on Liberty in August, and I'll have a review of that whole trip because me and Brooke are going. We have a channel called Red Cactus Media. The link will be in the bio. We've already done a Wonder of the Seas vlog, so that's already up there, 3 parts, and we will record our Liberty of the Seas review. But yeah, let's get into Quantum. This is the other class I haven't been on, and the reason for this is these are all up north. This is Quantum, Anthem, Ovation, Spectrum, and Odyssey of the Seas. These are all for up north, more colder stuff. They're more enclosed. This is like Freedom class and Oasis class had a baby. So it's the Oasis class size and kind of width, but it looks more like Freedom, and it doesn't have like the open Central Park and basically those open parts that Oasis class does. And this goes out of like New York and Alaska and all those up there. So if you want to do like, you know, an Alaska cruise, those are great. You would do it on that. And not much I can say about these ships, but from what I've heard, they're great. So yeah, I really wish one would come down to Florida because I really want to try this class out, but I doubt it. Because Oasis class and Icon class are taking it all up. So let's go ahead and talk about their most famous class of all time. In my opinion, obviously Icon is like the talk of the town because these boats are newer and coming out and they're insane. But Oasis class is like their most iconic and dare I say one of the most iconic looking cruise ships. I mean, I remember growing up like when I was 9 and they announced Oasis of the Seas, and I remember my mom, because she gets brochures in from these cruise lines that she books with, and I remember seeing Oasis and I was like, holy shit, this is like the biggest thing ever. I need to go on this boat. And finally, all the way in 2023, I finally went on one of these, which was Harmony. This has Oasis, Allure, Harmony, Symphony, Wonder, and Utopia. 6 boats, the most in any of these classes, and they just ordered a 7th boat, which is crazy because Icon is still rolling out. We only have 2 ships in Icon, and they're making 2 right now, which we'll get into. They also have Discovery class, which is coming out in 2028 or 9, which is going to be a more smaller class, which we'll talk about later in the video as well, because we don't know much about that class. And there's a reason why they're adding a 7th one. I mean, these ships are great. You have the open Central Park. You have the Lido deck, which is split in 2. Again, there's no TV on the Lido deck because there's not like a set middle Lido deck. It's kind of split in 2. But on Utopia, I think they did add a TV, which was great. Then you have the boardwalk with the sports bar and the merry-go-round, and you have the aquatic show in the back, which is great, especially on a night show. It feels amazing, and it's great to see. What can't be said about this class? It is a fantastic class. I always recommend this class if you can't do Icon. The problem is, I don't know who is what. Obviously, a lot of my friends are in Orlando. We're in the Central Florida area. It's hard to go out of Port Canaveral, so that's why everyone always asks me why I like going out of Miami. One, I really don't mind the drive, and the view leaving Miami, in my opinion, is like worth it when you set sail. But the problem is, you look at Port Canaveral, you have Star of the Seas, which is the newest ship out, which is expensive as all hell, and you have Utopia, which is their newest Oasis class ship. So that's really, I think Adventure of the Seas goes out. So if you want like an older ship, you can go there. Like I said, now I kind of just try to do Oasis class and Icon and obviously Icon, but I really only do that with my mom because it's so hard to book an Icon class right now because it is pretty expensive. But that's why I usually go out of Miami because you have Symphony and you have Wonder going out, which are 2 great ships. I love Wonder. I've done it twice. Let's get into it, guys. Their newest class, probably, again, Oasis is their most iconic class, but this class reached people outside of cruising. I remember when Icon was being built, everyone was talking about it, and I remember I just didn't even believe it was gonna look real. It just looked insane, and we booked it like a year and a half out, and I remember just keeping up to date with all of it. I remember it came into the States and people were filming it. My friend's parents live in Puerto Rico, and it stopped there, and they were sending videos and stuff, and it just lived up to the hype, guys. You have Icon, Star, and Legend, and actually just revealed yesterday, Hero of the Seas will be the 4th ship coming to Miami in summer of 2027. Now you have Icon, which right now goes out of Miami, but I think it's going to move to Galveston or Fort Lauderdale when Legend comes over. You have Star of the Seas, which goes out of Port Canaveral, and you have Legend, which I think is starting overseas near England, Mediterranean, and after 4 months, it's going to come over here to either Miami or Fort Lauderdale. And then you have Hero, which is coming to Miami. So I think Legend will move to Fort Lauderdale. They're kind of keeping these icon classes in Florida, and I know a lot of people are mad about that. They were hoping the 4th icon class was going to go up to Jersey. But this is obviously, if you have the money, or if your parents have money and they want to do a family trip, this is the best, especially if you have kids. The problem with the Oasis class ship is they did have a section for kids on the Lido deck, and it was still spaced out. But Icon has a whole floor, so that boardwalk I talked about in the Oasis class ships is actually still a boardwalk, but instead of the Aqua Theater being there, they moved it to the front of the ship, and instead in its place is a whole kids area. So now on the main Lido deck, you still have some little kid pools and stuff, but a lot of the kids will be on this deck 8, which is great and clears up the Lido deck a bit. And if you watch my Icon or Star of the Seas review, I mentioned that one of the things that I was worried about was space. Like I said, when we were talking about the Vision and Radiance class, I was worried that people, that's for people who want like a more open deck, maybe with less people. With this Icon class, yes, there's a lot of people, especially when you board. I'm sure it'll be overwhelming, but it was always smooth. One thing Royal does really good, in my opinion, is getting on and getting off the boat, especially getting off the boat. I mean, when I went on Icon, first off, we got on 2 hours early. I always show up early, but we got on 2 hours early, which was good because I needed to film. But then we got off and it was a breeze, which growing up, and I don't know if it was just Carnival, but when I first started getting back into cruising when I was like 16, 17, around 2016, 2017, I just remember it was hell getting out. And we'll talk about Carnival in another video because I think some of their stuff is good, but I switched over to Royal in about 2021 after I went on Independence, and I never looked back. So that's Icon, and like I said, there is a Discovery class. We don't know much about it. It's coming out in 2028 or 2029, and all we know is that they said they're going to go back to kind of smaller ships. I think they're going to go back to almost Freedom size, maybe Oasis, but Oasis is like right below Icon. So I think they said Freedom, which is great because then we can have like a Freedom class size ship, which is top of the line, the newest ship out, and it can go into those ports, like I said, that maybe Icon can't. But guys, this is a different type of video for me. Let me know if you guys liked it. I love talking travel. I love talking about cruises, and I always have people ask me these questions, so I think I can pivot that into my YouTube channel and maybe even some TikToks and just explain the classes a bit more. But as always, guys, it's been Joey. See you later. Bye-bye.